So I've been in a couple of car accidents. But I'm fine though. Everyone's fine. The first car accident was my fault. Technically. From a technical standpoint. It was my fault. But it wasn't my fault. I was taking a trip to Zoomers for my sister's birthday as well as my best friend's birthday. He was in the back seat, she was in the front seat, everything was fine. And I was using my ex-fiance's car. Well, he was not my ex at the time. So I was going to make a left-hand turn. And the light was one of those lights that doesn't give you a left-hand arrow, it just gives you the green circle. And I saw that as a go. I had been driving for only 2 months. And I was like, yeah, I have a green light, I'm gonna go. Everything was fine, the road was clear. And then out of nowhere, this person on the opposite side starts racing out of the library that I'm turning past. I didn't see him at first. Really, I didn't see him until the last moment. And my best friend's in the back and he's going, what is he doing? And then I hit his back quarter panel. The car that I was in was legally totaled, but my dad was able to fix it, master mechanic. It was a Toyota Corolla. It was my ex-fiance's. We were together at the time, and I was just about to get a car the next day. And I totaled his, and I felt so bad about it. I calmly pulled into the median, and I put myself in park, and I said, someone call 911. And then I broke down because I didn't know what to do. I was losing it. I was like, Tyler's gonna kill me. Tyler's gonna kill me. I start freaking sobbing when the cop came on scene. He comes up to my driver's side window and he asks, is everyone okay? And my sister's like sitting next to me consoling me. And she goes, yeah, everyone's fine. And I'm bawling my eyes out. Like, I cannot stop. And the cop looks at me and he goes, are you okay? I'm fine. I'm losing it. The car was very badly damaged. The dude that I hit was an older dude. Naturally, Southwest Florida, older dude. I hit his back quarter panel. His car was still running to the point where he drove himself to the hospital. They didn't have any issues. They didn't have anything like whiplash or anything like that. Everything was fine. But he drove himself to the hospital. And this car is totaled. To the point where my front two wheels were pointing like this. It's messed up. So I called my dad. Dad came out like 30, 45 minutes later. He told me specifically, do not let the cops call a tow truck. He knows a guy. He's a master mechanic. Again, as I say. We didn't let the cops call the tow truck. My dad came out. Initially, he goes, it's fucked. He starts thinking about it. And he calms down. And that's what he does every time. Every time it comes to a car, he's like, you're fucked. And then he stops and he calms down and thinks about it. And then he's like, well, you don't have any frame damage. And imagine this as a 55-year-old male with a heavy French accent. I'm not any of those things. So he goes, you don't have any frame damage. Really, you don't have any damage much at all, except for the headlight and the front bumper. I could fix it. I'm like, cool, you can fix it. He goes, we gotta get towed first. So he called the tow truck, cost me $100 out of the money that I was saving for my own vehicle to get it towed from where I was to where my ex-fiance's house was. I got into the house and his grandma's home. And again, I start bursting into tears because she's like, what happened? And I'm like, I messed up. I totaled the car. And she's freaking out and I'm freaking out. And then she calms me down and she's like, it's fine. He's going to be fine. Like, I thought he was going to kill me, but he was fine with it. I don't know why. My dad got the car towed from Tyler's house to his house and he starts fixing it. It took him 5 months to fix this because he didn't really have the time to do it. He was doing other things with other cars at the time that he was actually earning money on, and it also cost $3,500. I got my own car the next day, and for I think 2 or 3 weeks, I was transporting him, my ex-fiance, I was transporting him back and forth from work because I felt really bad. I just totaled his car and then got my own. I was on my parents' insurance. I wasn't on his insurance, but his insurance was trying to charge him $700 when they were previously charging him $100 a month, because I was uninsured at the time and they didn't have proof that I had insurance. So I had to literally, and by the time that we knew that they were trying to charge him that much money, this was when we had broken up. So he had to sell his phone. And then his best friend emailed me saying, hey, I need you to email these people proof of your current insurance, because this guy that you totaled the vehicle of currently is being charged $700. I'm like, oh no, I felt so bad. We broke up for different reasons, not because of the car. I emailed them, it was a whole thing, and then I got mail a couple months later from a New Jersey company saying that I owed them $15,000 because they had to total the other dude's vehicle. The dude who drove to the hospital in his own vehicle. They totaled it, and then they were trying to tell me I owe $15,000 for that. So I called them up and I said, that wasn't my vehicle. I wasn't on insurance, and the car accident wasn't my fault. And they said, well, that doesn't necessarily mean you don't have to pay. I hung up. I was like, nope, not dealing with that. I straight up thought it was just going to go on my credit. It didn't, so I'm pretty sure the expense ended up paying it $15,000 later. So that was my first car accident. My second car accident, me and my boyfriend at the time, we had broken up, and he had just dropped me off the insurance, and I had just left the house so angry. I was in my car and I was taking a right turn on a very busy street. I was fine. It wasn't my fault. So I took the right turn, and when I did, the lady behind me thought that she was clear to do a right turn and didn't take into account how fast I was pulling out. So she pulled out, hit my car, rear-ended my car, and I was massively mad. Like, I got out of my car ready to fight someone, and then this old lady, like 70, 75, jumped out of her vehicle, like, gently, and then starts hobbling over to me, and I'm mad, and then I realize that it's an old lady and I can't be mad and I can't beat her up. So I just like bent over as if I was panting or whatever. I was just in the middle of the road, and she goes, I'm so sorry, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm so sorry, are you okay? And we're all like, I'm sorry, are you okay? And back and forth, and she goes, I have insurance, do you want me to call my insurance? And I just had to make up a story because I didn't know how else to explain to this lady that I just got dropped off of my car insurance. So I was like, I can't, because my ex-husband just left me and dropped me off the insurance. It was so dramatic. And she goes, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. We can just drive away, because she was at fault anyway. So she just was just like, it's okay, we're fine. We can just drive away, it's fine. I'm like, thank you so much, because I thought I was going to get a ticket anyway for not having insurance. So everything was fine. I just drove off. I drove straight to my dad's house. I was like, some old lady rear-ended me. Can you look at this? He said, your bumper's broken, so there's no way that I can fix that. You have to replace the bumper. I'm like, great, cool. So that was that. And then the other car accident I got into a head-on collision. Some guy decided, while we were on a 2-lane road going 60 miles an hour, he wanted to pass the guy in front of him. Didn't look to see if it was safe to pass. So he got into my lane, realized at the last second that he was in my lane and I was in my lane, and tried to get into his lane again and hit my front where the headlight is and everything, messed up my vehicle. I had to total it. 2012 Ford Fusion SE, absolutely loved it, but I had to total it. And he ended up in a ditch. I'm still in the middle of the road. Right before he did hit us, my husband was in the car and he pointed, he goes, babe, and at the last second hit me. I had my arm up like this. I don't know why. And the airbags went off and hit my arm to the point where I had so much force going into my shoulder that it messed my shoulder up. Really bad damage. I was on a 10-pound weight limit for 3 years. I still technically should be on one, but I'll get to that story in a little while. He hit my car, and then Matthew's still in the car, I'm still in the car, and he comes over to my passenger side, and he opens the door for us, and he goes, I'm so sorry. Are you guys okay? That was my fault. And like, he's apologizing to us because it's his fault. And we're like, you just hit my car. I don't necessarily remember what happened after that to him, but I do know that I looked down at my arm. I had massive swelling and bruising on my arm. I was like, my arm's we gotta get out of the car. So I go to go out on my driver's side, which has incoming traffic coming past us. And Matthew's like, no. And he's like in and out of consciousness at this point. And he picks me up from my driver's side seat and pulls me over and out of the car. And he gets out of the car and he hit his head on the ceiling. So he's in and out of consciousness. I ended up walking, and this is where there's no self-service whatsoever. It's really hard to get through to somebody. So I walked over to like a stop sign or something to where I thought, I'd be able to call my dad. So I called my dad first. I didn't call 911 first, but I called my dad. And I said, hey, we just got into a massive accident. My car's f***ed. I think my arm's f***ed. Basically, you're going to need to pick us up from the hospital because I'm calling the EMTs next, and they're going to take us to the hospital. So he's like, oh, okay. I'm like, yeah. So I call the cops. The cops show up on scene. The dude admits to the cop it was his fault. The dude admitted to us that it was his fault. The cop didn't document that the dude admitted fault, but the cop did document that it was his fault. So immediately on the way to the hospital in the ambulance, I'm calling Morgan & Morgan. I'm like, hey, we got a case. And then I called my jobs and I'm like, I'm not gonna be in tomorrow. I was in a car accident and everyone was fine. Everything was fine. Morgan & Morgan came out to our house the next day and we talked to them and everything. We went through a whole thing and we started to go through the claims process. And the dude who knew it was his fault and admitted fault said that it wasn't his fault. And so now we had to go through contested litigation that was also contentious. And basically it took a year and a half for him to admit fault and for them to understand that I didn't hit his car with my car in my lane. And it took so long because they were swearing up and down that I ran a stop sign. And as soon as they told me that, I'm like, hold up, swole up. I showed them on Google Maps where you can do the street view. There's no stop sign. As soon as I said that, they were like, we're settling. I'm like, yeah, you are, because I didn't do anything wrong. I had a lot of medical bills at that point because I had to go through a lot of physical therapy for my shoulder. Still, 10-pound weight limit. I had pain to the point where my entire back was seizing up. At first, like for the first 3 or 4 months, I was just laying on my mom's couch. Every once in a while, I'd sit up and I'd have to push myself back into my seat because I had such a bad spasm in my back and I was trying to find any way to stop it. It was bad. I got a call from an Italian restaurant and they were like, hey, I know you applied to be a server, but how would you feel about being a delivery driver? I'm like, I was just in a car accident. I don't have a car yet. Can I call you back? So that's how I found out that I was able to get into a new car. I went back to the same place that I got my car at the first time and said, hey, I got gap insurance. I need to get into a new car, blah, blah, blah. And they got me into a new car. We were looking through what they had on the lot and I'm just like, I really don't like what we have on the lot here. Can we just like look online to see what other drive times have? And sure enough, 4 hours away, they had another 2012 Ford Fusion. This one was the SEL, the luxury edition. And it had the same color. It had a few more miles on it, but that's fine. It was a little bit cheaper than the first one anyway. I absolutely fell in love. I'm like, guys, this car just saved my life in a 60-mile-an-hour head-on car accident. I'm totally gonna get it. So I got the car and I called him back immediately and I'm like, hey, I got a car. I'm still in a sling. I didn't tell him that on the phone. I'm still in a sling. And I was like, can I come in for an interview? I come into the interview and I'm still, again, in a sling because my shoulder's messed up. And we did the interview. It was kind of awkward. He's like a family friend. And we did the whole interview and it went well enough to the point where he hired me. So that was great. But I ended up really struggling in that job initially just because of the whole physical pain aspect of it. But I flourished really well in that job as well because I was delivering them for a year and a half. And I ended up learning how to do a lot of things one-handed, right-handed, and I'm left-handed. I had to do a lot of things right-handed. I learned how to do dishes one-handed as well, which was extremely difficult at first. But I was their main delivery driver 7 nights a week for, I think, 3 months, just in a sling. It wasn't at that time. This was a year later. same time. But yeah, it was an experience to say the least. Here I am today. I'm fine. My shoulder is still like bad, but I'm living my life. I'm living the best life. It's fine. So that was the third car accident. My car accidents really did teach me to be safe. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you would like to see next. I still feel really awkward saying that, so thanks.